record this puppy. All right, so here we are. Welcome. It's Tuesday night, and it's USBands night. Thank you guys for coming on, especially you guys that judge a lot and been around a long time. Appreciate you getting on here. Think we have to do a little bit better work to get more folks here. We have about 55 right now, 56, 57 still coming. But I think there's probably more people than that judging this weekend. So pass the word, I guess, and we'll, like I said, we're taping it and or at least recording it, and we'll get it out, and hopefully people will listen. So away we go. I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so the agenda, we always like to review the mission statement this year. I got a couple updates on things that maybe occurred this past weekend, give you the shows, and then I have a few things to talk about. In terms of some things to look at, a lot of this is review for most everyone. If you're brand new, it might be a little bit new. Mission statement, this is for youth education and the arts, which therefore transfers to all the other programs, to support the development of young people into magnificent human beings through participation in the performing arts. We're obviously centered on marching music at this point, at least in this program. We do have a lot of dance going on in this building. In fact, they just left here a little bit ago. And we have some other programs on the horizon, but for now, marching music is our avenue. As far as you getting the information you need for the weekends, you should have everything you need for the 27th and 28th by now. If for some reason you don't, please email Nate or someone in the USBand office. I know I got my stuff yesterday, I think, today. And that's all the details. You've already probably received some material on that event. I mean, I'm judging Piscataway, and I've seen the time a few times, seen the lineup, but the final details, etc., should be to you. From there, we have 12. We do, basically every week we have more and more detail, or I should say less and less detail, and we try to get that out to everyone so they have a feel for what's coming up. These guys have done a great job with that. Sometimes it's been a problem of ours in the past in terms of keeping everyone up to speed, but so far so good. As far as this past weekend, we had 13 local shows. We did not run any premier events, which means events that youth education, the arts, or USBands are responsible for. We had in New England, we had 3 events. If you were Brian McMahon, you know that that's one show that did not go off as planned. Had nothing to do with us. However, they had a power outage during intermission. Something, I forget, Justin did find out, some kind of power line. And they had emergency lighting and all, but eventually they had to call off the back half of the show. So it's kind of unfortunate for the sponsor. They had all the people there, and they didn't get a chance maybe to sell them all the food that they maybe would have otherwise. Not to mention the young people not getting a chance to perform. And then 2 other events at Francis T. Maloney and Putnam. New Jersey to kick off probably, I guess, the first real weekend. We had 5 shows, a couple big ones, 18 bands, 16 bands. Everything went well. And then, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to do it this right. And then in other states, Maryland, we had 3 shows. West Virginia, we had a brand new show. In Martinsburg, and in Virginia, we had a new show with 14 bands. So overall, pretty good weekend. Here's some takeaways, some things to remember. Just things that pop up, not like actually problems we had. Things went pretty well. But and in fact, as I looked through the recaps and the numbers, I think everyone stayed, if you will, within the lines very well. Few shows I wasn't there. I can't tell you that some bands didn't turn on, etc., but there are a few shows where the numbers strayed a little bit to the high side. I would prefer that versus to the low side. So I'm not really, I didn't say anything. I didn't send out anything to anyone. I didn't talk to Larry about anything. But if you go through all the shows, you could probably spot a few that maybe are a little bit higher than the others. Not a big deal at this point in the year. We're talking a few points. I would say most folks, as my note said, most shows scores were between like a 65 and a 73. Um, which at this point of the year, the fact that everyone's kind of like the same, it makes a little bit of sense to me. It's because there's so many performance issues that people are trying to deal with. So thank you so much for doing that. Please take a look at the scales. Somewhere it's probably in here somewhere else, but this weekend the numbers change. So if you're new to us, underneath the same words and the same descriptors, the scale will shift. You don't even have to worry about it if you just follow the scale. But if you have it in your head for some reason that the middle box is 65 to 70, and you don't look, you would have a problem. Okay, so we slightly move things up. Generally speaking, every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. We get later into the season, but this week is a change. So theoretically, the same band with the same panel doing exactly the same performance would get a higher score by a few percentage points. That's obviously never going to happen in terms of the ideal show, but that's the idea. It does generally work out, again, as long as people follow the scale. So I just want to remind you about that. We had a much better time this weekend. We obviously changed some of your responsibilities in terms of the electronic piece. So that was something we should have done before. So that worked out. Also, appreciate you folks taking the time, and the chief judge especially, making sure everyone takes the time to check their scores at intermission. I know you're ready to run to the bathroom normally, and also at the end of the show. You want to do that pretty quickly. You don't want to rush, or you don't want to you want to make sure you look and make sure your numbers line up to what you have. And also the chief judges did a great job of kind of, what you're trying to do more of is sit back and kind of take a look at it and just evaluate whether it makes sense or not. Sometimes people have the right numbers all right, but what they actually wrote down uh, was perhaps a little bit incorrect, if you will. So that's that. And then lastly, the quality of the tapes. That we saw a lot of good comments, positive comments about the quality of the tapes. And by quality, I mean supportive. As I like to say, you're judging, you're not being judgmental. Justin, I'm going to block you. I can hear you. You're not being judgmental. And that is a difference, right? That's the difference between just saying, hey, this is a 72, really appreciate what you're doing, and not, in fact, being a little bit more aggressive and saying, boy, I can't believe you actually did that, or, what were you thinking about? That's judgment. What were you thinking about? Why would you do that? Why don't you have any tubas? What's wrong with you? Well, chances are they don't have any tubas because they don't have any tubas, meaning they don't have the instrument, or they don't have the pliers, or who knows? And we don't know. We don't know what happened in the middle school. We don't know what happened with the 3 kids that got caught smoking in the bathroom. We just don't know. So we judge what they do. We judge what's on the field. That's why we use the numbering scheme we use in terms of size of band, matching people on the field versus size of school, because we're not casting judgment about how large your band should be. We're just evaluating whatever you're bringing. So, okay. And I thought that went well. You can just usually tell by the comments. Again, it's early in the season. People are more receptive. Make sure you practice these traits, because when it gets later in the season and competition becomes a little bit more important, I guess they may be a bit less forgiving or a bit more wanting in terms of their evaluation. So thank you for that. It definitely matters a ton. Don't think that just because they don't listen to your tapes before they come in, which sometimes does happen, they definitely listen, whether it's on the way home or Sunday morning. Critiques also matter, and I say be kind. I don't know if that's the correct word, but I've seen people dismiss folks in critique because they're tired, or they brought in too many people, which a lot of them still do, despite my requests that they don't, or they don't listen to their tapes and they look at you and they say, "So what do you think?" Of course, you're tired and you're like, "I just told you what I think. What do you think about what I think?" And normally they're not prepared to do that, and things kind of spiral out of control. So, but for the most part, again, I thought critiques seemed to go well from all the evaluations I read. Please, on your side, I'm reminding you, have your notes ready. Just have your notes ready. If they're not prepared, take over. You have your 3 or 4 items that you want to talk about. 5 minutes goes by really quick, and you should be fine. And everyone, hopefully, they get out of there with a little bit more information than when they came out, when they came in. Ideally, they're asking you questions, no doubt about it, but that's not always the case. If they do start to criticize, you might want to remind them that you probably are not going to see them again, and unless you're a New Jersey judge and you're judging a big show later on, it's probably true. If you're in other states, you're probably not going to see them, so perhaps it's more wise for them, and I think most of them have figured this out, but it's more wise for them to ask you questions and seek to understand what you have said instead of trying to get you to change your mind, because it doesn't matter whether you change your mind normally, you're not going to see them. That's why I think our critiques have actually gone fairly well over the last many years. We did have 2 missing judges. Yes, ouch. We've gone full years without a missing judge, and we've also had horrific years with missing judges. But we had 2. One was a car accident on the way to the airport. Unfortunate. Not much can be done. And the other was car trouble. I'm not one to judge either, but if we leave early enough and we make sure we got our act together, as one that teaches young folks all the time, I tend to not have a lot of patience for things like that. I kind of believe that people kind of control their lives and you can figure things out and get where you got to go. So, as I tell them, run your life, not to preach to you folks, because you're gracious enough to be here, but run your life like you're running for an airplane and everything will be fine. We've probably all done it where you're standing there and the airplane's going to leave and you're standing at the gate and you're looking out and they're not going to let you on. It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you do, they're just not going to let you on. So kind of use that kind of timing, I think everything works out to a far higher degree. And small occurrences like car troubles and flat tires and things, if you leave enough time in there, they can be just an annoyance instead of stopping you from where you got to go. As I note at the bottom of this slide, this might be the 200th show you've judged, and you might not be all that interested. You might, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, wonder why the heck you're doing this with your Saturday. But there's a lot of band directors that might be there at this time of the year. It could be the first band show they've ever had, as director. And for their kids, clearly, a third of that band has never been in a competitive USBand show before, or any kind of competitive show. And you want to keep that in mind. Those of you that are teachers, I'm always find it amazing. I had a great teacher when I was in high school, poetry, believe it or not. And I always wondered, how the heck do you get yourself that excited, to teach the same course for 30 years? Well, it's the same thing about judging, right? There's not much you haven't seen before, probably, if you've been doing this, and especially this time of the year. So you got to generate it. You have to choose to generate it like it's brand new, so the folks that are listening to your tape feel that you're excited, you're paying attention, you're trying to be supportive, all that stuff. So keep that in mind, and I think that'll help you in terms of the drive there and getting dressed and all that. Obviously, a little bit of money is nice, but most of you, not all of you, but most of you aren't doing it for the money. It might be some mad money for you, and you hide it away from your wife or husband. But for the most part, I think most of us do this because we're trying to make some kind of contribution here, through the world of marching music. So just keep it in mind. My own little point. Takeaway number 3. Make sure these are little technical things about the tapes. Make sure your intro is clear and complete. Again, so the tabulator, they're checking to make sure they're putting everything into the correct Dropbox for the bands. So my name is George Hopkins. I'm judging effect. Welcome Central High School, like that. Name, what you're doing, name of the band. Okay, if you don't do those, if you don't throw the name of the band on there, they're not quite sure. You can tell by listening to the first 5 notes, but they can't. Okay, so just kind of a little reminder to yourself. Also, when you're speaking into the iPod, the mic is at the bottom, just like on your phone. I see people kind of talking in different ways in their phone. I'm like, they do realize the microphone's at the bottom, right? But it is. So make sure you're kind of aiming there. Don't stick it, please, too close to your mouth. We have that problem at Drum Corps International. They actually use iPads now after they've had so many problems with their microphones. And I have tapes where I can't hear anything because the judge has it up against their lips, I guess. And then I have other ones where it sounds like they're 3 blocks away because they have it too far away. So you want to make sure it's comfortably there and it should work out fine. But make sure you're aiming into the right side of the microphone. And then finally, just everything should upload fine. If it doesn't, if it gets disconnected from Wi-Fi or something of that sort, it's not uploading. And we should have people going around to check that. But you can tell it's still recording, so you don't have to panic. It's not like the next band. That band won't get their information, but they may not get it in a timely fashion if you, for some reason, got disconnected. You hit a wrong button. The service went out for 2 seconds and everybody got dropped. Generally, most people get dropped together. All of a sudden, you'll realize somebody will say they're not connected, and everyone looks down. You're like, oh yeah, we're not connected, and they have to kind of re-up everybody. But when you look down, if it doesn't say uploading, doesn't turn green, I think it's what they do. I haven't judged yet this year, though. I think if they judge green, turn green rather, then everything's fine. Lastly, these are all a lot of reminders. Better to be on time. I keep repeating myself, but we do have a couple people that like to pull in with 5 minutes to go. By the way, since I said that, if you're at Piscataway, I'm going to be flying in about 15 minutes before because I have to pick someone up at a train station, and they moved that show earlier, and it's going to be a little bit close. So if you're at that show, I've already got my sheets, and I've already set up my stuff, so I'm just going to kind of be there. So just kind of don't yell at me. I know exactly what I have to do here to get everybody there. Make sure you review your sheets, especially if you haven't judged before. It just helps a lot in terms of kind of playing along as you go, just to remind yourself of what's important in USBands. Always talk to your co-judges after the first A band and the first open band. And that should really be it. I don't mind people checking in now and then. You have a 16-band show, you're middle group 3. I don't have any problem at all with somebody going, hey, what'd you do with those guys? Or what did you think about those guys? If you're doing it after every band, I do have a problem with that. I suggest you don't do that. We hired you, or we want you up there for your opinion. We don't want all the numbers to be exactly the same. We want everyone to do what they think is right. And chances are 4, 6, 8 judges are not going to see things exactly the same, unlike in Drum Corps International. So do what you think. Feel good about it. It'll balance out. It'll work out. That's why the system works the way it does. Okay. And then finally, please dress like a judge. My rule of thumb: you should look out of place when you're walking up the stands. You should not look like you're a band parent at a band show. You should not look like one of the kids. You probably should not look like one of the staff. So you should feel more dressed up. You should feel slightly awkward. You should feel like the guy that shows up at the party with a tie and everybody else is hanging out. Okay? So better that way than the other. All right, it's enough on all that extra stuff. This weekend, there are 21 events. I think I mentioned last weekend. Last week in the seminar, the workshop webinar, there are next week's Yom Kippur, so a lot of the shows moved on to this weekend or the following weekend. So we have a couple pretty heavy-duty weekends here amongst us. New England, we have 5 shows, 1 afternoon, 4 evenings. New Jersey, 6, including a couple larger, Piscataway 22, Burlington City 19, Pequannock 16. So some pretty big shows here. Please check your start times. Do note Rocky Hill 1 o'clock, the Quantic 2 o'clock, the Piscataway 1:30, Seneca 1:30. So they're not all 6 p.m. shows. Tom's River 3:30. Okay. Preview Central Bucks South is 6:15. Maryland, we have two, one at 12, one at 4:30. West Virginia again at 1. Tennessee, a big show at 4 p.m. Idaho, we are the Kings of Idaho. We have 25 bands beginning at 10 a.m. Early start time there in beautiful Idaho. Still not done. In Northern Virginia, we have our first regional, 28 bands. We have a couple of effect judges there. We'll talk about that if I remember when we get to the scoring. And then we have our first Texas shows. We have a show in Odessa, totally new region out in the middle of nowhere, Midland, Texas. Odessa are right next to each other. We used to have a DCI show out there way when. It's a non-competitive show, so the folks in that will get a little review before they begin. So, and then finally our first Houston show, 15 bands, and a pretty awesome stadium, Wood Forest Bank. That's an early show, 10 a.m. They have a football games in there in the afternoon and evening, so it'll be a pretty active show. If you're wondering about forecasts, take a look real quick if you know where you're going. The East Coast is looking awesome. Just about sunny, anywhere from 75 at the beach, Virginia Beach, all the way up to 82, I guess, in Washington, Philly, and Hartford. Perfect. Maybe a little too hot even. If you're not in the East, a little bit more variety, a little bit warmer in Texas, as you would guess. Alabama is looking good. The shows that are a little bit challenging, Phoenix, Arizona, I guess because it's 94, chance of thunderstorms, pretty good chance. And Las Vegas, of all places, and Boise, unfortunately, chances of storms. I've judged the Boise show, sitting in the mountains there, you just don't know. I mean, I judged the show, it started at 60 degrees and clear, and we ended up in snow by the time the show ended. So it's just one of those locations. But hopefully everything will work out. Still a little bit early. There's a lot of chance for things to tighten down a little bit. Okay? All right, for this week, I mentioned the sliding scale changes. They change every 2 weeks, and this is the week. So just make sure you take a look. Just follow the system, and it'll all work out. All right, these are random reminders. This is kind of this week for me. I'm trying to pick up those things that I think become problems. Music includes percussion. If you're on music field or music ensemble, you include percussion. Now, I have a note here that says judge what they give you. What I mean by that in USBands, it may be a little bit different than other places. If they're smart enough, if I don't have a great percussion line and I put it in the back of the field and I park it around the 50-yard line and it creates a decent pulse and they don't bring it up front and do a drum solo, etc., it's okay. I mean, judge what they give you. That's what I mean by that. They're giving you other things to listen to. They got a great woodwind section. They have a soloist here. They're doing a lot of visual things. They get some tricks of the trade. Judge what they're doing. Now, do you have to make note that their percussion line's not very strong? Sure. What's the difference? The difference is a band that does not have a good drum line, brings them up and does a 45-second drum solo. I mean, you have no choice at that point. When folks, sorry, I was just looking at some questions. I'm going to go back and make sure I caught them all. When people come and do what they do, you gotta judge it. If they don't have a great woodwind section and they start Easter Overture and they try to throw down for 64 counts, you have to do what you have to do. But if they're smart enough to not do that and leave the runs in the keyboards and have the woodwinds play support lines, then that's smart. And we can judge that too. So I guess the point is we don't go chasing after trouble. We judge what they present. Sure, if you notice, and somebody's brought this up to me, I'm 3 minutes from the end of the show, or I think I am, and I haven't heard tubas yet. Well, I got to go out there and find them. I mean, if you're on the field, that's what I mean. You have to go get them. So, sure, you have to have some balance. But again, that's a difference between going and finding them because you're not quite sure you've even been able to evaluate, 3 or 4 individuals, which would probably be the case, or it's a difference between finding that, knowing full well that they have a problem with their trumpet line and then following their trumpets around for the next 3 minutes. We're not going to do that. We're not going to find a weak link and then follow it around. We're going to give everybody an equal shot. And like I said, if they're smart enough to not feature their trumpets and they don't have a great trumpet line, awesome. We don't have to tell them how we would have wrote it or how we think it should be written. We should be congratulating them for being smart enough to get things rearranged to emphasize their strengths. So that's a kind of a key for us, I think, and that's probably a little bit different than other places. In line with that, field music, more or less, you should stay off the field. Now, I've changed that over the years. It used to be no way, Jose. But, again, if you can't hear what you got to hear, then go out there. And that actually came up for me once when I judged field music. And I could not hear this band's woodwind section no matter what I did. I walked out 3 steps. I still couldn't hear them. They had them back behind the back hash most of the show. So I had to take a walk. But don't think, you're a percussion judge in Drum Corps International and you have to jockey through and become, the feature performer for the evening. Just want to wander out, make sure you get what you need to get, and then get back. For the most part, if you stay across the front sideline, and I don't mean in front of the pit if it's a big band, I mean along, pick your side, from the 40 to the 20 and the 40 to the 20 on the other side, you're going to be in good shape. You might have to switch sides because some bands don't switch sides. But, anywhere along the front, watch the props, watch everything going on around you. But don't think you have to go out and walk into the middle of the field, okay? Again, music ensemble includes percussion also, and that includes my favorite topic, ensemble cohesiveness. Down to the next point, if you can't play together, I'm not sure what else matters. We go to see a rock band and they can't play together. I'm going to have a problem enjoying that, guitar lick or enjoying, the lyrics because they're not together, so that's key for me. And that is a key. I'm going to talk about a little bit more of music ensemble, but that's key, music ensemble versus a guy on the field. You do have to take in percussion, but now you're talking about the whole ensemble. A reminder here, again, I'm jumping around a little bit. If it's A-bands, don't worry about content. You can bring it up if it's a positive, but we're not asking them. My little 3 points that I've been talking about for 15 years. If you're an A-band, maybe even any band, but if you're an A-band and you play together, you're in step, and you catch the stuff you throw in the air, I bet you're going to do pretty well. I think you're going to do really well. I don't think very many bands play together. I don't think very many people stay in step. And there's way too much stuff on the ground because it's too hard oftentimes for the kids. You don't need, if you throw, and I'm on Effect often and they have 6 guys, 6 young people and they throw 6 sixes and 4 of them hit the ground, there's not much I can say, right? I mean, I don't want to be mean, but can't really give much positive feedback for that. So if they would have thrown a 4 maybe, and they all would have caught it, it would have been just as effective. So, but that's young people and that's folks writing stuff that's maybe too difficult. Reminder from last week, I did get a couple emails on this one from band directors, but I think you all handled it well, but they don't agree with us. But complete shows are not necessarily better than incomplete shows. I would say they have an advantage at this point. It's September 27th this weekend. We're getting there. But, just because they did 9 minutes and they did 6.5 doesn't mean they're better. And people are going to say, what's more important in USBands? I'm going to tell you that's why you get the big bucks. You have to decide. That 6 minutes you heard, does that have more value? Are they showing you a better sense of accomplishment? Are you affected by that 6 minutes more so than the other 9? Then go ahead. Did they just stop in the middle of the tune and just kind of walk off the field? Well, you can't let that happen. If you're on Effect, you can't let that happen. You can't just pretend that didn't occur. So there's so many variables. Maybe they stop with a number to go, and you're not even sure if they're. I mean, I've done this often. I didn't know they had another number. Like I'm questioning on the tape, going, the show felt a little short, but I actually like the ending the way it is. And then, unfortunately, when I see the ending, the following week, then I don't like it. Then it's even worse. So, all right. So there's some kind of random things. I got some more, but remember the sliding scale. Music, guys, percussion counts, percussion counts, percussion counts. Can't ignore it. You can do it. Okay, I can judge woodwinds. You can judge percussion. You don't have to tell them how to fix it. You just have to acknowledge that they're not playing together, or they are playing together. Acknowledge that there is shaping. That there is a sense of cohesiveness. You can look at the keyboards and recognize rhythmic accuracy. You can recognize shaping, phrasing. Sure, you don't have to comment about the technique of four mallets, just like I wouldn't comment about woodwind technique or embouchure on a reed. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you I do. So, but we can all judge it what we need to judge at the correct level to get them in the right place. I think. Okay, content and A-bands don't go together. Don't worry about it. Concentrate on the performance. Again, if somebody's extraordinary, that's fine. And then lastly, complete shows, which will still be played this weekend, in case you're wondering. There will definitely be. There's a lot of bands with their first show this year. Think about it. We only had 3 shows the first weekend, and then whatever I just did the second. But we have more shows this weekend than we had all the first 2. So there are definitely bands that are coming out for their first time this weekend. Okay? All right, let me stop here for a second. Should field judge? Well, obviously, yeah. The field music guys got to stay away from the synthesizers. Again, if you have a big band or even any band, I guess. But if they have that stuff cranked up, different bands do different things. We have learned in my world of cadets, we keep the middle clear, so you can actually stand in the middle and the sound goes by you on the sides. We took away our center speakers because we realized we were not going to judge out of there, and he couldn't listen to the keyboards. But not everyone has figured those kind of things out. So they might have center speakers. They don't have enough money. They might only have one speaker. You don't want to stand in front of that, obviously. So go where you have to go. And those things are generally pretty far forward. They should be, 10 feet off the front at least. So you're probably not going to be there. You might be crossing in front of it, but I don't know that you necessarily are going to stand that far away. I don't know if I'm going to say that. How far out the round would you go? Certainly not past the front hash, and I don't even know about that far. Again, there are exceptions. Open bands that have well-written shows that are using a lot of the field. You might have to get out there, but just if their natural positioning has them hanging around the front hash, that's pretty odd. Their natural positioning should be like 2 steps in front of the front sideline, probably, and a couple jockeying for positions out of, jockeying for position when color guard come running to drop equipment. That's probably the one time they got to watch. Todd, I'm not sure what you're asking me. No overall tapes for what? In what caption? You're talking like brass? I'm sorry, brass. Music or visual? Remain your captain. Well, if you're on effect, it is overall. That's why I'm questioning. Sorry, guys, you're only hearing one. I'm reading, and you're hearing me talking. If you're on effect, it is overall. If you're in music, you should be talking about music. But I guess I'm going to hesitate. I'm not a big remain your caption guy because if they can't march together, it's probably affecting their ability to play. So I think if you want to make a comment about that, feel free. That's me. It's funny. I went crazy last week about making sure that in my opinion, the bottom numbers are most important. And I met with Michael Cesario. He's like the king of judging for DCI. And within 10 seconds, he's like, "Can you believe there's judges in DCI that are putting their bottom number down first?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." Like That's what I tell everybody to do. And then we talked about it for a while, but he's a little bit more to the box integrity deal. So there's different ways to do it. I just want to make sure you get the right number down there. All right, I'm running around questions for field music from the sideline. Are you commenting? It's a good question. It actually will come up on my next slide, Rachel. So give me a second, okay? But quickly, in case I miss, you're commenting about individuals and small groups of people. If that makes sense. The ensemble person is speaking of sections and segments. Your role is to make sure you can actually get. That's why there's still a field person here, the only field person we have, so that you can actually get a sampling of individuals and maybe small groups of people. 4 trumpet players playing together, like that. Okay? I have that. I definitely have that written, so I'm going to skip over that a little bit. Yep, and I've got that one. I got that one. You guys are stealing my notes. Off subject, but can we distribute cheats to the first half of the show to get critiques going on time? Okay. Brian, what show was that at? Just so I kind of can let Justin know. I am a bottom number guy, Mike. Always have been. Hunterton? Okay, Brian, thanks. Yeah, we do tend to get that. The coordinators are proud of the fact they keep things on time, and I tend to like them to slow down a little bit, especially early in the season. We're trying to get our feet underneath us too, so I will talk to them about that also. As far as we brought that up, I'll talk to Justin as soon as we're done here about critiques that Judy brought up that the week before one of the shows it took 20 minutes to start a critique. That shouldn't have to happen. They really don't need I know they want them, but they should be able to get their sheets and even I guess the recaps if they're done the first half. But if some reason they're not, a lot of them are fine to come in and talk to you in this day and age, especially early on. They're not that worried. So I know what you're saying. You just judge 15 bands, you're standing around for 20 minutes waiting. You want to get out of there. All right, moving my way up the ladder. Should did that one. Don't forget Idaho. I got that one. I got that one. I don't want to know about that one. Yeah, okay, yeah. And if you have USBands gear, that works too. It's gonna be more difficult when it gets colder. But thank you. And everybody else was about trying to get in there in the beginning. Okay. Alrighty, off we go to the next sheet. Some basics on the sheets. It's like a quick overview of each of the sheets. Next week I'm gonna let you know in advance. We'll dig in a little bit more. Percussion. There are some percussion sheets starting to come into play now. Bigger shows, percussion and guard. Take a look at the sheet before you judge it. Your tendency will be to reward the best playing drum line. That's not our sheet. Our sheet is 50% is effect. How does the percussion line contribute to the overall band effort? And then the other 50% is performance. So no question, you could have a very, very good drum line, drumming their butt off, and they're overplaying. You can't hear the woodwinds, etc. They're dominating the game, and maybe they're actually diminishing the effect because they're out of balance. I've had that more than once. So you have to take a look at that. You can also have guys that realize they're not all that wonderful, and they utilize their front pit, they utilize electronics, sound effects, and they're awesome, but they're clearly not the best playing band. Best playing percussion, and maybe in the performance side of the sheet, they're not going to do all that well. They may come in third, fourth, fifth. But on the effect side, they clearly contributed. They made a difference. Maybe they even had a moment, and you have to recognize that. So if you're a drummer and you're judging the percussion sheet, your tendency is going to be looking for the best playing drum line. And yes, you should do that for half the sheet. But the other half, you want to make sure you're looking for what's the most effective. Okay? Guard, same thing. Which guard's contributing the most? That's 50%. Who's got the most technique, at least from what you can envision up on the what you can vision up in the stands, and that's the other half. when you add them all up, now this is a part where I would take a little bit of look at the boxes. You know, at the end of the day, I think we're trying to get which color guard, which percussion line contributed the most to the event, to the performance, to the marching band. It could be performance. You know, we can go to the extreme levels of Dartmouth. You know, sometimes they're so ridiculously good, they generate effect all by themselves. You know, there's probably only 10 or 15 drum lines I see. That might be nice of me. 10 drum lines a year that actually can do something like that, where they're that good, they're generating effect. But they can all contribute, they can all support, as long as it's written correctly and they're playing fairly well. Same with the color guard. You know, if the stuff's overwritten, they're going to have trouble. Maybe they are more talented kids, but you know, do they have the right staging? Is the work appropriate? You know, how are they utilized in the overall schematic? Are they part of the storytelling? Does it make sense? Does it work? That's what the other half of the sheet's for. So if you are on percussion or guard, make sure you take a look at those two sheets. Okay, they do tend to become more popular with the shows beginning this weekend. Side note on both of those sheets, they should not, because people love at least 3 times a year, somebody's going to take that percussion sheet and try to get down on the field. And then once in a while, they'll get away with it because the guy running the show is not quite sure what to do. These sheets cannot be judged downstairs. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can't tell me which percussion line is contributing to the overall effect of the show from down standing in front of them. So that's why the sheet's written to be judged upstairs, and that's where you should stay. And I know drum guys especially love to get up close, but that's not what we're looking to do here, okay? The same thing for the color guard. They're upstairs sheets. That's how you have to look at them. More sheet stuff. This is to a couple people's questions I just pushed aside. Music ensemble and music performance do not have to come out the same in terms of your ranking and rating, despite what the band director says when he comes into critique. That is the most popular criticism of critiques. Guys come in and go, hey, he was on the field, he had us second, and you had us ninth. I'm like, well, okay. It's more than possible. It's absolutely more than possible. Because upstairs, you are evaluating the ensemble, right? The ensemble, not the individuals. You're talking about, are the segments playing together? It's my second time tonight I'm saying that. Blend and balance. You should not be judging blend and balance on the field. Maybe if you can get in front of the entire trumpet line, you can hear kids overplaying each other. Yeah, but that's kind of unusual. For the most part, you're not quite sure what you're hearing down there. You're hearing individuals, and certainly in a marching band, you got freshmen next to seniors. You are getting some differences in intensity. But be careful you don't try to say the drum line's too loud, because you don't know for sure. You really don't know. And make sure if you're in a weird position, you don't try to listen across the field at something. Just wait till you get there. You know, it's a big drum thing, but it really is in every section. You know, you try to judge a trumpet lick from the other side of the field while you're walking towards them. You think you heard something, but you can't really be sure. And if you're not sure, it's kind of like plausible denial here, right? In the NFL. If you're not quite sure, you should just be quiet. You know, wait till you get there. You'll have plenty of time to evaluate. You don't have to catch every little lick they do if you happen to be in the wrong place. Okay, and then the front ensemble comes to play for sure when you're upstairs too. The guy in the field, we just talked about it. If he's 2 steps off the front, and he's listening to the ensemble, he has no idea what's going on behind him. You know, so does he know what that pit's doing in relationship to the percussion line, or you know, is that keyboard feature really aligning with the woodwind feature? They don't know. They probably have a sense that it's not, but they should not be talking about that. But you should. Thereby, I could be judging woodwinds, and I could be 2 steps off the front, and I could think, wow, these guys are pretty good. But I'm upstairs, and I'm judging ensemble, and I can't even make it out because the drum line's too loud. The keyboards are out of time. There's a bass drummer going crazy, and the rifles are running in front of running in front of the woodwind section. I'm going to give a totally different number, a totally different read on the same thing. So don't get defensive when you see that. When you see the recap and you both did music, and one guy's got them 1, 2, 3, 4, and the other guy's got them 4, 3, 1, 2. You know, because I know what it feels like sometimes. You're like, uh-oh, you know, somebody did something wrong. Now, if you're like me, you know, I've had shows where I've gone into critique and I look down and everybody's got these guys 1 and 2, and I have them 8th. You know, like I say, I have more than one said, well, you know, you all got it wrong. I don't know how that could have happened, but clearly you all made a mistake because I'm the only one that got it right. But truly what probably happened is I missed it. And that can happen, right? And that you don't have to be apologetic at that point. You just got to, I would tell the band director, I'll take another look the next time. You know, you can't deny what's right in front of everybody. Everybody else got them 1, 2, and you got them 8. It's like, I'm not telling you I made a mistake. I did what I thought is right, but I will definitely take another look. Hopefully I have another chance to take a look. So, you know, that's same, you know, and I would expect that of anyone if they're the odd guy out. Now, I might be the odd guy out and be absolutely positive that I believe in my evaluation. And that's fine. You know, stick to it. So the upstairs, downstairs thing, I hope that makes sense. Downstairs, you're judging individual, smaller groups. You should not be commenting on balance. You should not be commenting on the percussion line being too loud. I hear too much of those. You might be right, by the way. I'm not, you know, you could, if you've been around enough, you could stand on the field and you can get a sense. But you just can't. You can't be sure of it. You can have a sense, but I would not create an evaluation on my, you know, my opinion or that's not the right word. You know what I mean? My sense. I don't have another word. Just my, you know, my overall feeling that, yeah, I think the drum line's a little loud. Well, maybe they're not. You know, so just stay away from that. That's not your job down. That's not your job down there. Okay, and if we all do our jobs, we're basically trying to cover how the kids play as individuals. I mean, yeah, the other thing you start to get, you probably get a lot this time of the year, is people not playing. You know, you don't want to chase the kid around the field to find that out, but there's definitely kids not playing at this time of the year because they don't know the music later on in the year because maybe somebody told them not to play. So that's your job too, you know, to kind of keep an evaluation for that too. All right. We got to get 7 minutes. Effect, a little short if you're on effect. I'm going to do a full effect thing and just invite people that want to know about effect in a week or so. Performance effectiveness, rep effectiveness. It's not performance and repertoire. It's performance and book. It's the effectiveness of the performance and the effectiveness of the rep. And one of my latest little things I like to bring up is what causes what. You know, when the trumpet line is on the 10-yard line and they're moving at 6 to 5s and they fall all over an articulated passage, is that rep or is that the performance? You can say whatever it makes sense to you because I think it's both. You know, sure, the kids did not perform, and from that standpoint, it's not very effective. But for me, and more, I've kind of been keeping an eye on this. They never had a chance. You know, these kids they're sophomores in high school, and you have them moving at that speed at 180 beats a minute. They're not in a pocket anywhere. It's the rep actually that did the damage, right? So that's why sometimes, probably more than some judges, you'll see my rep number. You know, normally, if you have a rep number that's below a performance number early in the year, that's kind of a really bad news. That means you're playing at a higher level than your show is succeeding. And you don't want that to happen in September. But I do that sometimes because I'm making a point that I think that the band director or the staff, that the band director is responsible, that they put the kids in a really bad place. And if they don't take a look at it, they're probably going to be struggling all year long. So that's a kind of an interesting thing when you're on effect to ascertain real quick. You know, sometimes like why is this happening? You know, why are they not playing very well right now? Now maybe they just don't know the music. You know, there you go. So you don't have to worry about much else. Overall, when I talk about performance effectiveness, and this just happens. Nobody taught me this. When I'm judging and I'm talking about the show and I'm looking at the color guard and I'm talking about percussion balance and I'm trying to sit back and enjoy the whole thing, I will, on occasion, and sometimes more than on occasion, have my viewing interrupted by something not good. I'm saying that very scientifically. So I hear a timpani player out of tune and I look down. That's to me that's a breakdown in performance effectiveness. I look, there is that big moment. They have a silent color guard feature, and they drop 6 out of 8 rifles. That's a problem. It interrupts my ability to enjoy the show. Sometimes they're small, people sticking out, kind of try to ignore it. But other times they're interrupters. A bass drummer that's overly zealous. He can't stop himself all show. Things like that. So it's kind of a good barometer, as long as you keep yourself aware. I think you'll notice that when you turn your head at something, frankly, it's a bad, if you ever like watch yourself, you're kind of watching straight ahead. We're back most stadiums except for a very few. We're backing up that you're just kind of watching. But when things go wrong, you find your head turning. I find my head turning. I bet you do too. Like looking at over, like what's over there, what's over there, what's over there. And that's kind of a good sign. So if you're wondering what to say next, your your body, your taking in the show actually does all the work for you. You just have to be aware of it and kind of watch yourself and kind of watch how things are going. Um, Please don't hold yourself to such a high standard. It's September. When you get down to it, is it possible that you go now? If there's band directors on here, which they're more than welcome, I hope they take this in the spirit intended. Do you find yourself truly being affected? I could go a whole show and not, and I mean affected, like excited, like in tears, like amazed. I mean, I could definitely go this whole next show in Piscataway with 22 bands and never actually hit that level of effectiveness to be affected the way that maybe we think we could be or should be. But I don't think that's necessary. I think, this is marching band. It's not Broadway. They're selling tickets to their moms and dads. I think for the most part, if they put everyone, I just misspelling, if they put everyone in the right place and they play well and they catch the stuff, and they're shaping and phrasing and the music's understandable, their idea, their show themes understandable, I think we're in great shape. I'm giving out big numbers. I don't have to be in tears. Now, those few times in a band season that somebody brings me to tears, I'm extremely appreciative. If somebody can get me to laugh out loud, I will give you a big number. Or if I go home and I'm just amazed, at the quality of your kids. There's bands I've judged every year that I just go home and go, wow, I can't even believe they can get high school guys to do that. That's awesome. But that's not the norm, right? That's not what you normally get on an 8-band show in Maryland at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But it doesn't mean they're not effective. You just have to be understanding of the world we're in. This is marching band. When they do Les Mis, it's a 2.5 hour show, and they're doing it in 7 minutes. It's pretty.
It's 10 o'clock.
It's pretty unbelievable. Now if they can make it believable that it's a high school band doing Les Mis, then I'll give them numbers. But when I start to not even believe that it's a high school band doing Les Mis, like it's so bizarre and there's costumes and Jean Valjean's conducting the closer and the drum line's out of, then I'm not. I'm out. I'm out. I'm going to start to drop my numbers. But again, I think it's important. You probably don't hear that too often because we like to talk in extremes, about the top box and being blown away and being in tears and, being mesmerized by a marching band or a drum corps to the point where you just sit there in awe when they're done. That doesn't happen very often, right? That doesn't mean they're not effective. Doesn't really truly mean in our world they're not effective. Those very special performances, that's why you keep 100, and that's why you keep a 99, a 98, 97, because maybe it will happen. But day to day, week to week, 14 to 15-year-olds, probably not going to get you in tears. So just something to think about. Maybe sometimes we're expecting too much, and we set ourselves up for disappointment as adjudicators because we're hoping for that miracle performance, and that miracle performance is a miracle because it only happens once in a while. So don't wait for it. Be surprised when it shows up. Uh, Instead, react, be appreciative. When in doubt, not go. When in doubt, I think it is okay to do play-by-play, by the way, while I'm talking about not being blown away. Sometimes when you're watching a Group 1 band, Group 2 A band, you start to struggle with what to say. Play-by-play works. I'm not a big fan of play-by-play, but I do it because I don't know what else to say. And what do I mean by play-by-play? All right, here come the trumpets. They're taking the lead line. Nice, okay. Silks, I like the colors. Yep, they match the uniforms. And here comes the mellophones. Nice little form. Bring that block across the field. So you're just kind of talking your way through. It's not a bad way to keep yourself engaged sometimes, when things aren't going that well. So hopefully over a shorter period of time, you'll have something more intriguing to say. But when in doubt, it's not a bad way to go. And I know judges that do it, period. And it works. It absolutely works, So it works for some people. So I'm just kind of letting you give that a shot. Almost done. Finding effect, it's overall. Somebody mentioned before, it is overall. You are watching the entire show. If you're a music guy, think visual. If you're a color guard person, think drums. Sit back and watch it like your mom would watch it. These people don't put together their shows in a vacuum. They don't come up with the best music moment, the best visual moment. They're doing them together, I hope. And that's how we try to judge it. We've done it for a few years. DCI did it for the first time this past year. They basically kind of jumped on the bandwagon, and it went okay. I think some of our folks that are on the phone call right now do it really well. I appreciate it. But keep that in mind. You just got to kind of stop from digging in too much on your specialty. Because of that, coordination is huge. It's probably the biggest thing I think we really talk about. Placement of elements is huge. Somebody wrote to me, and I always say it, and everybody else in the world says it. Do I hear what I see? Do I see what I hear? If you're giving me that much and I'm upstairs on effect, I'm happy. If I hear the mellophones and I look down and there they are, I'm happy. If I hear a soloist and I don't have to look all over the field to find them, happy. Okay? I have it right below. What do you want me to look at? What do you want me to hear? Just another version. I have this conversation with Colin all the time. He does the percussion for the cadets. We'll tend to overwrite sometimes like drummers do, and it's early. And it'll be in like May where it's spring training. I'll be Colin. Is this a trumpet feature or is this a snare drum feature? It can't be both. That doesn't happen unless you're completely integrated. But if one's supposed to be the primary, then it has to be the primary. And what it looks like and what it sounds like shouldn't have it look like that. And that's sometimes pretty hard for people to get. I mean, you'd think that sounds like it makes sense, right? You hear something, you look down, you see it. You look down, you see the mellophone standing on the front sideline, you're expecting them to be contributing or more than contributing by leading the charge. That's not always the case. People don't know how to, visual guys don't always know how to move guys around quick enough. That's why drummers get stuck up front after solos. They've yet to figure out, even though we tell them, after you do a drum break, don't drum for the next 32 counts so they can get you the hell out of there. But if you're drumming all the time, you're going to have problems because on the way out, there's going to be balance issues and drill issues and performance issues. If you just put the sticks down for 32 counts and make sure you arranged appropriately and let the keys handle it, the support lines, you're going to get out of there and it's going to be fine. And now they've told you that, you could probably watch. You'll be amazed. You can pull out all your drum corps tapes. You see almost everybody does it. It's pretty rare people drum after a break anymore because they figured out they can't balance it. How can you balance it when you're standing on the front sideline? You just got done throwing down, and now all of a sudden you're supposed to balance with these trumpet players that are 16 steps behind you. It's not very possible. And obviously, if you're upstairs, don't forget the color guard. I think that's probably most often what occurs at this time of the year. All right, to close, now I'm going to check the questions. Just a reminder, be prepared. Make sure you're there on time. Ask questions at the pre-show stuff with the chief judge or anybody else. If you have a question at all, you're wondering about classifications or anything like that, ask. Just ask them. You're not going to embarrass yourself. Everybody else asked before. Follow the number games from last week, and what I mean by that is right below. We did this last week. For spreads, I'll send this out. You can just remind yourself. This is the overall number, not the boxes, not the subcaptions. This is the overall number. 1 to 4/10 means I'm not even sure. I could go either way on this, but there's a lot of bands in this show, so I'm going 4/10 because I gotta cover my butt. If it's a smaller show, you might only go 2/10. I wouldn't go 1. Don't go 1 early in the season. As soon as you go 1, you're what they call boxed out. You have no way of putting anyone else in between those two. So at least go 2, but you probably want to go bigger than that. 5 to 8, you're clear. Band A is better than Band B, so I'm going 6/10. I'm going 8/10. Band C, you don't even have to think about it. You were 2 minutes in, and you knew what your order was going to be. Now you're at a 1.5. Now remember, all your stuff's getting divided. It's either your two music guys getting divided with each other, or you're a visual guy getting times 0.75, or same thing for a effect guy, right? Because you have 40 points on your sheets, but they're turning into 30s. The 2 music guys, their 40s are turning into 20s because they're getting divided. So your 1 point spread's not really 1 point. It's either 0.7 or it's even 0.5. Don't think about that too much, but I'm just letting you know. When you get into these big spreads, you get nervous. You really don't have a choice, right? If I have 15, I haven't even looked yet, but if I have 15 Group A bands at Piscataway, I got to leave some room. Right out of the gate, I got to leave some room. I can't be going 2 3/10. I got to open it up a little bit and hope to God it all works out. Like I can't go 15/10 just because there's 15 bands. I got to hope that somehow it's going to work itself out. But I definitely got to leave room to work. So, you got to think about that stuff. So take a look at that again. Don't forget. And it seemed like most people kind of had a grip. I went down, looked at recaps, kind of watch how people were putting numbers in. Remember, we don't hold sheets here, unlike some other areas. Turn them in. That's why you talk after the first band. And let me go find some questions. I'm going to start at the bottom. When you mentioned something. Yes, Dennis. When we're talking about judging smaller groups, I mean smaller groups of people, not smaller groups like a band. I'm saying, if you're on the field, you're probably only sampling 3 or 4 people at a time, whereas they come by, maybe they're in some kind of curvilinear or whatever, and they're following along the form. So you're kind of watching and listening to people as they come by you. You're not trying to listen to the entire music ensemble from standing on the field. You're just listening to the people that are close to you. That's your job. The guy upstairs is supposed to listen to all of them. The guy upstairs is not supposed to get hung up on one person, unless that person's so out of the sonority that you have no choice. Yeah, exactly. Like Brian just said, like that hero trombone player that's going to make sure you can hear him 4 blocks away, right? Then you have to say something. So, do you consider pre-show material when you're evaluating overall? That's a great question, Jason. The way we do pre-show stuff, I guess, kind of the way the drum corps did. Wait. Well, there is. Well, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm trying to remember a band that does it. Yeah, I think from an effect standpoint, you're evaluating it because they're trying to tell you something. Actually, in marching band, I'm not sure if it's even needed. Why it's in drum corps is because let's say I'm going to do a bunch of lyrical material and I got a lot of voiceovers, and it's going to take me a minute to kind of give you the lay of the land, the story. So the drum line's not playing, the horn line's not really playing. The technical judges will get on us for not playing during that minute. So I don't think in marching band we're really going to get on them for not playing in that minute. They're going to play for another 6 or 7, so we're not really worried about it as much. So my answer to that is sure, you do evaluate it. You're starting to get a feel for it. I wouldn't give it the same weight as when they say on the field from Central Valley, PA, the Allentown High School band. As soon as they say that, I definitely think now they're kind of telling you, okay, here we go. So, but yeah, sure, you want to listen. You don't want to turn your recorder off. We're far looser than all that. Yeah. So in UIL they have an 8-minute cap. So they put a pre-show on so they can go longer. It depends on the area of the country. Pre-shows are generally should be about kind of setting the stage, but I know it's gotten more and more convoluted over the last couple of years. I was at the DCA championships. I went to watch Cadets 2, and I was in the stands, and I won't tell you who, but one of the groups really had a ton of voice. They're not allowed to use voice in DCA except in the pre-show. Oh my gosh, they all use it. And one of the groups really had a ton of it, and and they weren't even done. They hadn't kicked off yet, and the woman hit me on the shoulder. She knew who I was. She hit me on the shoulder, and she goes, "Now do you see what you've done? Do you see what you've done?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really think this is very good myself, but I appreciate your thanks." So they can all be overdone, so they can have a comment. They're either helping this situation or they're not. So I think you're okay to say something about things like that. After all, so we're out there judging it, and they're performing it. All right. So I think that's it. As Justin wrote down here for me, 16 events done and 21 this weekend. So obviously a big weekend. We're grateful for most of the weather. Hopefully the rest of it will clear up. And we appreciate everything you guys have been doing. If anything goes wrong, please fill out evaluations or drop us a line. We did have, like I said, a couple things. We had the 2 judges last week. It's unfortunate. And then we had the power go out, which was extremely unfortunate. We even had Absegami had a bus accident. I think everybody's okay. I'm almost sure they are. But they didn't make it to 2 shows, so we had to do some adjustments there also, unfortunately. So, when you look at it, 21 shows. I forget the number, but there's 300 and something bands out there. There's like 78 judges and 30 coordinators. Obviously, stuff can happen from time to time. So we have people here in the office all day Saturday. If anything goes wrong, to try to react. Justin's available. I won't be available this time because I'll be judging, but do everything we can to straighten things out. So I hope it helps. Sorry I went over a little bit over here. And thanks for coming on board. And I'll see some of you this weekend, and I'll see all of you somewhere along the line. So thanks again, guys. And I appreciate your time and commitment, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.